Hey guys, welcome back to Unexplored Frontiers. In today's video, we'll be sharing some of the world's deadliest diseases, but not just any diseases. These diseases have taken many lives, wrecked the global economy, all while causing many to lose their jobs. Stick around as we count down the top 5 most dangerous diseases, some of which may surprise you. Rabies. First off, rabies, shocking, right? Well, not exactly. It's no secret that the culprits behind this virus are none other than dogs. Cute as they are, these adorable canines are carriers of one of the greatest diseases ever known to mankind. Well, what makes rabies more deadly? Perhaps it's the fact that the fatality rate of people who have contracted the disease is almost 100%. This means that nearly everyone who shows symptoms of rabies dies. Since dogs are also the most popular pets in the world, it wouldn't be totally surprising if the human race faces a severe threat from this virus. Luckily for us, a vaccine for rabies was discovered by Louis Pasteur in the 1880s. But before you start leaping for joy from pure ecstasy, be reminded that a vaccine isn't a cure. It only helps in preventing the transmission of the virus. But that's not all. It turns out that it takes as much as 2 to 3 months after the period of infection before rabies symptoms start showing. So, unlike other viruses like Ebola, which only take a few days before launching a full-scale attack on the human body, people can still get the vaccine within the period before the symptoms finally start appearing. For people who manage to get the virus during this period, they have a higher likelihood of surviving the virus. The fact that the developed countries are also taking a step in enlightening the general public on rabies and how deadly it is has also helped prevent the spread. In many places, vaccinating pets is required by law. It's a significant public health victory. However, rabies remains a severe problem in developing countries, where public health education and access to healthcare are scarce. And it's a terrible way to go. At first, you might feel like you have a flu, but then the virus starts messing with your brain, making you super agitated and confused, and sometimes even leading to seizures. It mostly targets your throat and jaw, messing with your ability to swallow, which is why you might hear people call it a fear of water. Your heart rate and blood pressure can go crazy, sometimes causing you to fall asleep or even stop breathing. They're really good at infecting both animals and plants because they don't have the right tools to check their RNA for mistakes. That's why they can change and mutate so quickly, which is why they cause so many diseases that hit humans hard, like mumps, measles, and different types of flu. Spanish flu. Now, this disease that I'm about to talk about is not just deadly, it's one of the deadliest diseases that the world has ever known, just below the Black Death in the 1300s. In 2017, more than 30% of adults in the US got a flu shot. Despite this, around 80,000 people still died from the flu in just the US. But back in 1918, there was no vaccine for the flu, and the number of people who died was literally insane, with a casualty rate of over 50 million worldwide. The Spanish flu spread fast, but no one knows precisely where it came from. Some think it started in the trenches of World War I, while others say it all began in China's Shanxi province in 1917, or at Camp Funston, Kansas, where a bunch of soldiers got the flu, and then a significant outbreak happened. What we're sure of is that the Spanish flu wasn't from Spain. Its name came from Spain being neutral during World War I, so they could report it openly while other countries didn't want to cause a panic and kept it quiet. Even the King of Spain, Alfonso XIII, got the flu but managed to survive, which got everyone's attention. The 1918 strain was way worse than the flu we get every year. People infected would get dark spots on their skin because they weren't getting enough oxygen, and some would bleed from their noses and ears because their lungs were filled up with fluid. Thank the good Lord, they have managed to get it under control, because I cannot for the dear life of me imagine what would have happened if it happened now. A disease worse than COVID-19? That's beyond insane. HIV/AIDS. Speaking of the world's deadliest diseases, there's one disease that literally everyone knows, so much so that it's always being taught in classes for middle schoolers, and it's none other than HIV. HIV has been a huge health problem for a long time, since it first started showing up in the 80s. Way too many people have died from this awful virus. Even with medical progress, HIV is still a big deal. There's almost no one who hasn't heard of HIV and AIDS. And for good reason. HIV is one of the deadliest diseases in the world today, continuing to claim lives of those it infects. Once a person contracts HIV, it remains in their body for life, with no available cure. Over time, HIV can turn into AIDS, which really weakens the immune system, making it easier for infections and sickness to hit. AIDS happens when HIV attacks and kills CD4 or T cells, which are super important for fighting off harmful germs. HIV is mainly spread through bodily fluids, and it all started with a virus from monkeys that jumped to humans in Central Africa. Even though there are treatments for it, HIV still impacts millions of people around the world, especially in places where it's hard to get healthcare. Symptoms of HIV can include fever, muscle aches, sore throat, swollen glands, and feeling really tired. These symptoms can look like other sicknesses, so it's essential to see a doctor for the right diagnosis. Some people don't show any symptoms at all, which is why getting tested regularly, especially after you might have been exposed, is critical. Even though there's no cure, catching it early and starting treatment can stop the virus from getting worse, letting people live everyday active lives. If you start feeling sick or have sex without protection, it's essential to see a doctor right away. These viruses can change quickly, which makes it challenging to create vaccines that work against them. The flu shots we have now don't do much against new, fast-changing flu strains. The threat is still as serious as ever, hiding in the background. Tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is one of the deadliest infectious diseases in the world, affecting over 10 million people each year. It's not just any version of the disease that's worrisome. About 1 in 25 cases are drug-resistant strains, which are especially difficult, if not impossible, to treat. Even though the number of TB cases was slowly going down from 2005 to 2019, the COVID-19 pandemic turned things around pretty quickly. TB programs all over the world got messed up, causing more cases and deaths. The real challenge is the BCG vaccine, which has been around for 100 years and mainly protects kids, but doesn't do much for adults, who are the majority of TB cases. Tuberculosis can be cured, but many folks don't even know they have it or get the help they need, especially in poorer places where it's hard to get to a doctor. Not everyone can get the proper treatment for a drug-resistant TB, and there's just not enough money coming in from different countries to stop TB from being one of the reasons people die today. Drug-resistant TB is a big issue all over the world, with almost 500,000 new cases popping up every year. In 2024, things are expected to be just as challenging, especially in poorer regions like South Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and some areas of Eastern Europe. Treating drug-resistant tuberculosis is super expensive, uses harsh and often not so effective drugs, and frequently leads to a lot of people dying. Even though tuberculosis usually kills about 1.5 million people every year, the ones that are resistant to drugs are a big reason why so many people die. The problem gets worse because of weak healthcare systems, not doing a good job controlling diseases, and not always giving the proper treatment. This is one of the many reasons why tuberculosis is still a giant killer today. Ebola. Ebola is one of the scariest and deadliest diseases out there. First found in 1976, this virus can cause severe bleeding inside the body, organ failure, and kill up to 90% of the people it infects. Even though there are different types of Ebola, they're all really contagious and spread by touching the body fluids of infected people or animals. The biggest Ebola outbreak happened between 2014 and 2016 in West Africa, killing over 11,000 and infecting nearly 30,000. Even though there are some experimental vaccines that can help, Ebola keeps popping up in Africa, especially in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. In 2024, Ebola is still a big deal because of poor healthcare in the areas it hits and how fast it spreads in places that don't have enough medical help. Ebola can really wreck communities, not just because of the sickness itself, but also by making the healthcare systems even more overwhelmed and stopping other diseases from being treated. What makes Ebola so scary is how quickly and badly it can make someone sick. At first, you might have a high fever, headache, and muscle pain, but then it can soon turn into vomiting, diarrhea, and uncontrollable bleeding from different parts of your body. The fast way the person gets sick and lack of good treatment options makes Ebola one of the scariest infectious diseases. In 2024, these diseases are still causing trouble all over the world. Even though we've made a lot of progress in understanding and fighting these diseases, the deadliest ones like HIV/AIDS, pandemic flu, drug-resistant tuberculosis, and Ebola are still a big risk. The 2020 COVID-19 lockdown really showed us how vulnerable we are to these diseases. Who would have imagined that an invisible virus could keep people locked up in their houses in every country across the globe for close to a year? Education, jobs, a lot of things were put on hold. It's plain insane. It completely shaped human history in more ways than one. But if there's one thing the lockdown has helped us discover, it's how to be better prepared in the face of new threats. If this deep dive into the world's deadliest diseases fascinated you, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you're hungry for more exploration into the mysteries of our world, make sure to subscribe to Unexplored Frontiers so you never miss an adventure. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next video.